Hello students, in this video I will help you understand the second unit from the second PUC English course book, Too Dear, written by Leo Tolstoy. Leo Tolstoy is a famous Russian writer who is known as the master of realistic fiction. He is considered as one of the greatest novelists. The story Too Dear speaks on the modern system of governance. It raises a question on the ways of punishing criminals and dispensing justice in the modern world. The title, Too Dear, means too expensive. Dear students, let's delve into the story and find out what turns out to be too dear. The narrator introduces us to a place where the story begins. Near the borders of France and Italy, on the shore of the Mediterranean Sea, lies the tiny little kingdom called Monaco. He uses the words tiny and little to describe this toy kingdom. There were only about 7,000 inhabitants in the kingdom of Monaco. The narrator calls this kingdom tiny but tells us that there was a real kinglet. Kinglet means a minor king. Since Monaco was a small kingdom, the term kinglet is used. Like any other king, this kinglet had a palace. He had courtiers who would advise him and ministers who had various responsibilities and a bishop in his kingdom. A bishop is a senior member of the Christian clergy in charge of the diocese. Since it was a small kingdom, there was only one bishop in the entire kingdom. Monaco had generals and an army. In the second paragraph, the narrator tells that there were only 60 men in the army, and further tells us how the kingdom got its income. We all know if a country has to function, it needs to provide public facilities like trains, buses, and roads. To make such facilities available to the citizens and also to take care of the expenses of paying the salaries of the government servants, the government needs to collect taxes. The King of Monaco also imposed taxes on tobacco, wines and spirits, and poll tax, which would be on smoking, consuming alcohol, and an individual tax which every citizen would have to pay. In the third sentence of the same paragraph, the narrator says that the kinglet would have found it extremely difficult to give salary or allowances to his courtiers and officials if he had not found a special source of revenue. The special source of revenue came from the gaming house where people played roulette. Roulette is a game played in the gaming house as displayed on the screen. The keeper of this gaming house made a lot of profit and paid a large sum to the prince. The narrator tells us that the German sovereigns used to keep the gaming houses earlier, but they were forbidden. Look at the word forbidden. The word forbid could be used in the present tense, forbade in the past tense, and forbidden is the past participle of this word. The German sovereigns used to keep the gaming houses earlier, but they were forbidden by the people because those who lost in the gambling would sometimes drown or shoot themselves in despair. Therefore, the Prince of Monaco remained with the monopoly of this business. In the third paragraph, the narrator quotes, "You can't earn stone palaces by honest labor." This proverb means that you can earn money easily only through unethical means. Though gambling is considered as a dirty business, the kinglet had to resort to it because he had to meet all the expenses and live like a king. The Prince of Monaco reigns and rakes like a real king. That means he rules and earns money just like any other king. In the fourth paragraph, the narrator tells us that the king had his coronation. Coronation means the crowning ceremony. His levees. Levees means the official reception of a guest who comes from another country. He has his reviews, councils, laws and courts of justice just like any other king, but only on a smaller scale. In the fifth paragraph, the narrator abruptly tells the reader that a murder was committed in the prince's domains, and such a thing had not happened before. The judges, prosecutors, jurymen and barristers condemned the criminal to have his head cut off, as the law of Monaco directs. After they submitted the sentence to the prince, he read and confirmed it and ordered that the criminal must be executed, which means beheaded. In paragraph 6, we come across a very interesting fact that there was a hitch in the process of execution. They did not have a guillotine nor an executioner. A guillotine is a machine with a heavy blade that was used to cut the criminal's head. Since no murder had been committed before, Monaco did not have a guillotine for an execution. After a discussion, it was decided to write an inquiry letter to the French government if they could lend a machine and an executioner, and the cost of it. The French replied that it would cost 16,000 francs. France used francs as their basic money till 1999. At present, euro is used. 16,000 francs was too expensive for Monaco. Therefore, this idea was dropped. In the seventh paragraph, the narrator tells us that the King of Italy was asked if he could lend the machine and an executioner, thinking that the King of Italy would be induced to do it for a cheaper cost, as he too was a king like the Prince of Monaco. In the eighth paragraph, we find that the Italian government agreed to supply the guillotine and an expert for 12,000 francs. This too was expensive for Monaco. After another discussion in the council, they decided to ask the soldiers to behead the criminal. The general of the army talked it over with the soldiers if they could undertake the job, but they refused, saying, "We do not know how to do it. It is not a thing we have been taught." What would the administration of Monaco do now? In the next paragraph, the story takes a turn after a brief discussion of a commission, committee and a subcommittee. They come up with the suggestion that the death sentence should be altered, which means it should be changed to imprisonment of life. Instead of beheading the criminal, they would keep the criminal in the prison until his death, and this would take many years. They assumed that this was cheaper and it would project that the prince was merciful towards the criminal. In the 10th paragraph, we come across another hitch faced by Monaco. After getting the approval of the prince, they decided to put the criminal in a prison. But they realized that they did not have a suitable prison for a criminal sentenced for life. All they had was a small lockup for temporary use. Finally, they put the criminal in a prison with a guard to watch him and also provide food from the palace kitchen, as they did not have any other alternative. In the next paragraph, we learn that a year had passed. Like any other organization that looks into the income and expenses of the year, the Prince of Monaco too checked the account. He was so worried that they had spent 600 francs for a year on the criminal's food and the guard. It was a serious matter, as the criminal was young and healthy and would live for another 50 years. The prince once again summoned his ministers. In the 12th paragraph, the prince orders the ministers to find a cheaper way in dealing with the criminal. As the ministers discussed, one of the ministers said, "Gentlemen, in my opinion, we must dismiss the guard." But another said, "The fellow will run away." The first speaker said, "Well, let him run away and be hanged to him." When the king was told about their deliberations, he agreed to it. Even after the guard was removed, the criminal did not run away. He fetched his food from the prince's kitchen. He returned to the prison, shut the door on himself, and stayed inside. The criminal was surely in a comfort zone. He had a roof over his head and good food to relish from the royal kitchen. Why would he run away? In paragraph 14, the ministers suggest the prisoner to run away, as there was no guard to stop him. In the next paragraph, we read that the criminal tells the Minister of Justice as to why he was reluctant to run away from the prison. He tells him that by giving him death sentence, they had ruined his character and people would turn their backs. Look at the phrase, turn their backs. Turn their backs is an idiom. Turn their backs here means that they would ignore him and not respect him. So the prisoner tells them that by giving him death sentence, they had ruined his character and people would turn their backs on him, which means that people would no more respect him and ignore him. He tells them that he had got used to this relaxed life and had forgotten to work. Moreover, he was treated badly. He said that it wasn't fair, as when he was sentenced to death, they should have executed him, but they did not. He did not complain. He accused them of changing the punishment to life imprisonment and putting a guard to fetch food every day, and finally removing the guard and forcing the criminal to bring food all by himself. He resented their actions and refused to go away. In the next paragraph, we see that the ministers felt helpless. Once again, the council discussed and they concluded that the prisoner must be sent away. They wanted to get rid of him by paying him a pension, as they did not have any other option. After reporting the matter to the prince, they called the criminal and offered to pay 600 francs as a pension. They thought that paying a fixed amount of 600 francs every year would be cheaper than keeping the criminal in the prison, as the cost of living would increase as years roll by. In the 17th paragraph, the criminal agrees to take the pension on a condition that they should pay him the pension amount regularly. In the 18th paragraph, we learn that the prisoner received 1/3 of his annuity. Annuity means annual pension. Here it would be 200 francs. It was a luxury because he would receive the pension till his death. He left the king's territory. The distance travelled was only quarter of an hour by train, that is 15 minutes. He emigrated. Emigrated means settled permanently in another place. He settled across the frontier. Frontier means border. So the criminal settled across the border and he bought a bit of land and started market gardening and lived there comfortably. Tolstoy concludes the story saying that the prisoner goes to Monaco every month at the proper time to draw his pension, after which he goes to the gaming house and stakes 2 or 3 francs. Sometimes he wins, sometimes he loses. He lives peaceably and well without any problem. In the concluding paragraph, we can infer that the criminal was lucky to commit a serious crime like murder in Monaco, where they let him go and also offered a pension to get rid of him. Dear students, this is how dealing with the criminal proved too dear to the prince and the kingdom of Monaco. Thank you.